I'm so excited today to have Cash Miller on the podcast. Cash is the true embodiment of the American dream. Before he became the CEO of Titan Digital, an award winning digital marketing company with offices in 4 states, Cash served in the U.S. Army, where he learned the value of hard work, discipline, and determination. After leaving the Army, Cash put his skills to work and started Titan Digital 12 years ago as a small SEO company. Through sheer grit and determination, he grew the company into a powerhouse with over 600 clients and a reputation for excellence in the industry. As an expert in marketing, business management, and marketing technology, Cash's expertise has been instrumental in the growth of Titan Digital. In 2022, the company made the Inc. 5000 list, a testament to Cash's leadership and dedication to his craft. But even with all of his success, Cash remains humble and focused on his mission to help businesses achieve their marketing goals and grow their bottom line. Cash, I'm so excited you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, it's great to be here. I'm, stoked about doing this show today.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I hit some of the highlights there, but I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader.
I've been in the military and I spent 7.5 years there, and you get a lot of leadership lessons when you're in the military, both good and bad. There's some things that they do right, and there's some things that you learn from and how not to do things.
Yes.
And I can say that, overall though, like my Army time is, some of the, at the time when you're serving, you think otherwise, but afterwards, when you reflect back on it, it's one of the greatest journeys I think you can, have, especially being a, citizen soldier. You go, you serve the country. Only so many people are willing to do that. And I ended up deployed to Afghanistan, Iraq, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I lived in Germany for a while. I've lived in Texas and Colorado and Virginia. So you get around a little bit, and it exposes you to good leadership and also bad leadership at times. It's just that's the nature, whether it's a military organization or any business. You're going to have good and bad wherever you go. And then with that, I've got over 20 years of entrepreneurial experience. I haven't worked for anybody in decades. Like I said, the Army's it. I have not held a job. I'm not going to bother to say how old I am, but I haven't held a job for anybody, with anybody else since I was 20. So I'll just say that it's, I'm in that third decade since I've had to work for anybody. So I've spent a lot of time over those years managing people. And I've run multiple businesses. I run two now. You've experienced highs, lows. You deal with people that can be great, and you deal with people that are not so great. And you will think you are the greatest leader in the world, and you'll be surrounded by a bunch of people that think otherwise. So there are a lot of things that you go through and you learn over time. But the longer the journey, hopefully you gain some wisdom along the way.
So why digital marketing? I mean, you and I are seasoned enough to remember when digital marketing was not a thing.
Yeah, my digital marketing experience goes back to 2007. So I ran a business. I have a weird journey because I spent 3 years in the Army from 95 to 98. And in 98, my father said, "Hey, why don't you get out?" I wasn't planning on staying in the military. I wanted to move on. And my father said, "Hey, you could take over, the business. I'm moving into new things." And he had a small upholstery company. I was in Las Vegas, serviced casinos and restaurants and things like that, doing just commercial upholstery primarily. And he ran it out of his one-car garage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'd worked for him a little bit on and off, when I was a teenager. Make $10 an hour. You could hardly get me to do it unless I needed some money. you know.
Yep.
So because when you're young, it's hard to have a work ethic, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I joined the army. I said I need to get off my ass and develop an work ethic, and that is one thing that I will tell you. Whatever branch of the military, you will learn to be accountable.
Mm.
For yourself, for
Yeah.
the things being accountable because other people rely on you, so being accountable to them too.
Yeah.
So you learn a work ethic, and I think that's one of the best things about the military.
Mhm.
Especially nowadays with younger people, it can be a little bit more of a challenge. So, I highly encourage, like, if you don't have direction, the military is a good way to get started. You don't have to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I get out and I say, okay, I'll take this over. And my father was a lifelong entrepreneur too. I only remember him he passed away at the age of 56 of a heart attack, but I only remember him having one job in my entire life up to the point where he passed. That he worked for 3 months at a budget rental car when we lived in San Diego.
Hmm.
And then he quit and started another business. Like he owned multiple in my life, while he was around, and I was growing up. And it's just kind of the way my family works. So I said, hey, I'll learn. Okay, I'll do this because I can learn from you. And he taught me further the trade. And when he passed in 2000, and I was stuck in a position of having to take over.
Hmm.
And I can't just do a job. Like if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to run a business, I'm going to try to grow the business. That's my mentality.
Sure.
So I did over the next few years, and eventually we got up to like 25 people. But the economic environment was changing. The dealing with the employees was difficult. There were so many things that I did not know.
Yeah.
And so I made a lot of mistakes.
Hmm.
Eventually I decided that I didn't want to deal with the stress or anything, and I shut it down. I was like, that's it, I cannot do this. I was tired of dealing with casinos and restaurants that didn't want to pay their bills and things. So I shut it down. But at that point I have a wife and I have a kid, and I'm like, what do I do? Okay, I need a job. So I'm like, let me go back to the one thing the other thing I know how to do. So I re-enlisted in the military. I rejoined the army in 2007. So it was the end of '06 when I officially, I think it was January '07, somewhere in there. But I said, okay, let me go back and I re-up. But now I'm a bit older and a bit wiser and stuff. And, I had a plan laid out. I figured I'm going to make it a career. I'm like, I was burned out. I'm like, I'm never running another business as long as I live.
Yeah.
Well, I remember December of '07. I'm like, I started getting the itch like almost immediately. I'm like, what can I do? Like, I was getting ready to deploy to Iraq. And I'm like, I need something for my free time. I need something to occupy my mind. So I decided to build a website. I said, I'm going to tell everybody else what not to do in business, essentially. Like I will draw on my, whatever success I had and the mistakes I made. And I started writing content. I launched a website. Eventually I said, how do I get traffic? And I started learning SEO because I started studying. I had time, when I was off duty, to be able to learn this stuff. And that was back in the early days of SEO. It'd been around 5-ish years or so. So most of the stuff, any learning you were going to do was online from other people doing. And so I was like, okay, let me give a crack at it. And now you fast forward to 2011 and my contract's coming up. And I'm like, do I really want to re-up? Because by then I had 2 kids and I'd already spent, out of a 4.5-ish year enlistment, I'd already been gone over 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So between Iraq and Afghanistan and training exercises and things like that, we'd already lived in Texas and Colorado. I would have had to move again. I knew that. I probably would have wanted to switch jobs, so I'm like weighing all of these things. I'm like, I wonder if I could sell this SEO thing, because by then I actually had a few clients that I was just doing it, as a side hustle. Like, hey, you want to pay me? Okay. Because I had some business coaches I dealt with, because I would publish some of their content. They eventually asked me, like, how do you get traffic to your site? Could you help us out? I'm like, sure, why not? And eventually I'm like, well, apparently people want to actually buy this. Yeah. So it was at that point, that I decided, okay, I'm going to get out of the military, and this time I'm going to start from scratch. My
Wow.
father handed me something the first time. It wasn't a great thing that he handed. It was basically me and him, and then the occasional part-time help that I built. But this time around, it's like, no, I'm going to start from the ground up. I'm going to build something of my own choosing.
Hmm.
And so I decided, well, it's going to be a digital marketing agency because that's what I've been learning for the last 4 years on the side.
Wow. That's remarkable.
Yeah, it's everybody's got a journey, so
Yeah.
that gets them, where they are, and that's the journey that I'd been on to that point.
Well, and I think that's exactly right. Everybody has a journey, and I'll often say that there's no such thing as a wasted experience.
Oh
You know,
no,
everything that happens in your journey is either going to be useful to you at some point, or it's something that you can share with other people to benefit
hmm
them. So, you burned out and you said, I'm done with this, never doing this again.
yeah,
And then you came back. I want to talk about that for just a minute because there's a
yeah,
lot of people in the entrepreneurial space who are feeling like they're getting to that point where they're just like, I hate this. I hate all of it. I've built something,
hmm
but it's not what I really meant to build.
yeah, yeah. That can happen.
Yeah. So how did you come back from that place of burn? I mean, you went back in the military, but almost immediately you were feeling the edge. What was it, do you think, that contributed to you coming back to a mindset where you were like, no, this is really what I want to do?
I think part of it was is you know I had a full-time job.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm serving and stuff, but then your mind keeps working. I'm the type that my mind doesn't shut down very easily, and you've got to
Yeah.
distract it to get it to stop.
Yeah.
Um, so you start thinking about that, and you start realizing. I take like books as an interesting thing. I've been a reader since I was like 13 years old,
Yeah.
and and I started with fiction, sci-fi adventures and
Mhm.
fantasy and things like that. And then when I joined the military, my reading didn't stop, but what I read changed, and I started
Mm.
reading more military history.
Mm.
And when my father passed, he had a small collection of like old business books and things like
Mhm.
that, and I kept them. Things like Peter Drucker,
Yeah.
let's say management guru for
Oh, yeah.
decades and 50 years or whatever. So I eventually I started reading a few of them, out of curiosity as much as anything. And I kept, like I say, I had the itch. I kept, even when I was in, I was like, I would try a few different things. It's like, oh, maybe I can make a few bucks here or a few bucks there. Like just extra. I didn't need the money. I had a paycheck and stuff, and it was able to support my family. But I had a wandering mind. I
Yeah.
needed to occupy it, and then it starts to like solidify. And I think with people, you have a growth, but you have a point of burnout.
Yeah.
For certain things where it, I'm amazed by the person. I just read a really good book on by Jeffrey Immelt. I
Mm.
don't know
Yeah.
how to say his last name,
Yeah.
but
Sure.
the one of the former CEOs of GE, and I've read Jack Welch's books and stuff too.
Yeah.
But he goes through that journey and he talks about GE and how somebody stays there for 20 years. The entrepreneur is not that person. You look at some of these serial entrepreneurs, we're not the people that have 20-year careers,
Right.
in a single industry or for a single business, because it's just really hard.
Mm.
You need the journey and you need the continuous challenge. And it's not to say someone in that corporate position, they have challenges as they move up the ladder, but
Sure.
we need I won't say bigger challenges, but different challenges.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
I had run one type of business and I get back into it, but it's a totally different business. And I took from the first one some lessons of like, what do I not want to do? Who do I not want to work with?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that I hated about it?
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, these are the things I don't have to do anymore. I
Yeah.
can make this second time around be different. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that you know, when you start to, come to that realization, I really loved. Originally, I thought I loved what I did, and
Mm.
I thought that meant I loved the upholstery business. I loved doing commercial seating. We would build restaurant booths and do these remodels and stuff. And
Yeah.
I thought I loved that. I didn't. What I did not realize is I loved being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I didn't give it. I didn't really care about the business itself, what I
Yeah.
was doing. That wasn't the love. But at the time, I thought it was.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think that's, how you end up getting through it. If you're truly meant to be an entrepreneur, and not everybody is, but if you are, it's not about what you're doing. I want to run companies. I don't even care that, it's, I realized, I don't love digital marketing. It's an interesting field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there is a constant learning to it. But what I love is running a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, my wife has said for many years, you get bored, just maintaining.
Yeah.
You know, that's not how I'm wired. My grandfather started his own business, a small kids clothing store, right?
Mm.
And ran that and sold it and retired. And my dad started his own business. Back in the 70s, started an advertising agency way before digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
This was newspaper and radio and TV, right?
Hmm.
And he ran that until he retired, you know.
Yeah.
And so I've watched that my whole life, and the power and the value of that mindset. The idea of maintaining something is not appealing to me at all in the slightest.
Right.
I would be bored out of my mind. So I get exactly what you're saying. Coming to burnout, coming to a
Yeah.
point where you just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do one more day of this.
I know. Yeah.
Can't do that. I think is a great indicator. Well, maybe you're not in your zone of genius. You're not
Yeah.
operating in your sweet spot.
Yeah. There's an interesting book called Traction. You might have,
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
you've heard
great
of it,
book.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book. And what it does, I mean, it talks about pairing up where you have that visionary
Mhm.
that is great with ideas and stuff, but they're not really meant to be the day-to-day operator.
Yeah.
Because so you have to pair them with the integrator,
Mhm.
and the integrator is the operator. They're the person that can take your and you're contributing because you are the idea person. You are
Right.
like, hey, we could do it this way, this way, this way.
Yeah.
I'm not your best process person
Mhm.
because I don't like it, but I can do numbers, especially financial numbers in my head all day long.
Mhm.
Okay, I can start spitting out stuff and tell you what we're going to need.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
don't want to be the person that has to implement it, but I will tell you how many, of whatever we got to sell, how
Yeah.
many people it will take to sell it, and how many people it will need to support it, and other
Yes.
things we're going to have to add in. I'll tell you what you
Yes.
need,
Yeah.
but for me, it's a slog, to go through and be the person that's also going to implement. So I have to pair up with a good integrator. I have to make sure that I've got somebody else, to execute some of the things. And that's the thing. And when you're in that journey, because entrepreneurship is also this self-discovery journey.
Yes.
If you said, 5 years ago, it was I didn't need the book to point it at. Well, I needed the book
Mhm.
to point it out to me. I already knew it, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I knew I was the visionary, but it got me to accept that I wasn't the integrator.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Sometimes
Yeah.
we need framework to help us to see what we sense, but we don't
Yeah.
have words for yet.
Yeah, and on that, I mentioned earlier, like I switched to eventually reading like military books. Well, what happened is I ended up reading some of my father's business books. Now I have a very extensive business book, collection. I've read Traction and a
Mhm.
bunch of others. I just finished a book with G. And what I found is initially it was management books, and you
Mhm.
look at that growth, and maybe marketing books, and how to recruit people, HR type books and stuff like that. I don't really read any of those anymore.
Hmm.
What I do read, I'll read the occasional, if like Traction, I read about a year ago or something, 2 years ago. But what I primarily read is business biographies.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and and I do this
That's
because
good.
regardless of the business I am in, those journeys of how companies grow are important because I'm going to see the paths others were on, the roadblocks they went in. It doesn't matter what business they were,
Yeah.
okay, because businesses have a lot of this of similar problems.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'm learning how they overcame them. There's a bit of positivity if they had a great, you know, uh, you know, experience through it and they've grown to be huge. But then
Yeah.
you also see all the roadblocks.
Yeah.
If the author, which is usually like the founder of the business or somebody significant, um, if they're being honest about it,
Yeah.
they'll tell you the ups and the downs.
Right.
And it keeps your own thoughts churning and thinking, through, and you'll find lessons that you will apply. I've always believed learning, and I've got a master's degree in, business management and stuff. I've always believed it's not about the degree, it's not about the book you read. It's about if I can take a class or read a book and I get one item out of it,
Yes.
one thing that sinks in with me, then it was
Yes.
worth doing.
100%. That's how I feel about all the different things that I'm learning from, whether it's a book, a course, a podcast episode.
Hmm.
If I walk away with one big idea, something that I say, oh, okay, that makes me think differently.
Yep.
That's going to be something I can take and begin to apply. That's worth the investment of time.
Yeah, and I've always, like, for my own, I don't. I'm one of those. Probably drives my staff nuts. I'll be slow to make a decision, but once I've done it,
Yeah.
because I need it to germinate a little bit.
Yeah.
But once I've made it, then I'm quick to execute.
Yeah.
So
Let's
once
go.
I've made up my mind to do something, now
What
we're
are we
gonna.
waiting on now? Come on.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the process of selling my digital marketing agency. I've ruminated over that one for at least 6 months, but it took me about 2 weeks to find the buyer once I decided that was what I was going to do.
There you go.
And I'll be, closed out in no time. So, that's the thing. And I'm part of why I'm doing it is because I needed to go through that experience because I'm ready for my next challenge.
Exactly. Exactly.
I don't want to operate that business anymore, and I know what I'm going to do next. So I think as entrepreneurs, I always marvel at the ones that are like serial entrepreneurs and stuff. I don't know, like, I applaud them for their ability to build a business quickly and then exit,
Yeah.
but I think, each one is its own journey.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to be, that's one of the realizations I've come to is you don't have to just settle for that. I thought I would run the agency, until retirement or whatever. And now I'm of a totally different mind. And part of it is I think running it to retirement was going to stifle my own growth.
Yeah, and listening to you talk about this, it's just completely evident that you are a perpetual learner from so many different inputs in your life. So I want to pose this question to you. I mean, you are not the same leader that you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
I don't know.
And,
Definitely not.
Yeah, and 5 years from now, you're going to need to lead at a different level for your next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to level up? Like, what do you do to stay on top of your game and develop the skills that you're going to need 5 years from now to be the leader you're going to need to be?
One of the things that I'm, they say, I mean, besides being a perpetual, like, I'm reading constantly and stuff, and I'm looking for, different stories so I can understand people's journeys. One of the things I'm realizing, it's part of it's self-realization. For me to be a better leader, I'm actually working on being more hands-off. So I look at some of my own weaknesses and, some of the things that I would do differently, in how I've led. I give you an example of one of the lessons I learned is don't interrupt the staff. I may need something, right? I may want something in the moment, but if I ask for that something of any staff member, it doesn't matter what they're doing. I'm the boss, so they'll immediately drop whatever they're doing. And I had to learn to be cognizant of the fact that they would do that. And I don't want them to do that. That's not what I asked. But so I have to look for other ways, to go about getting the things done that I need. So I've learned to step back. To be a good leader, I need to be, in my case, because of my own journey, I want more oversight, less involved in the day to day. I want to be less involved in the day to day. So I have to get better at picking good leaders.
Good.
For me to be able to, get better as a leader, I've got to get better at picking other leaders and then just focusing on training them to be leaders, enhancing their skill set rather than worry about every individual person within my organization and what they do. If I train the person under me to do better and I pick good people to do it also, and they don't have to have my exact leadership style or philosophy or anything.
Yeah.
One of the earliest things, like all the way back, my days of the upholstery, I would teach people how to do a job, right? I've always been a believer that if you're going to ask people to do jobs and you're gonna know that they did them right, you better know how they do them.
Sure.
So in that particular business, anything that they did, I could do myself.
Yeah.
Military is often like that too. Digital marketing, I can do a lot of the things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Some, I'm not a coder. But what I always told them at the time, I said, look, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to show you my way of doing it. My way is not necessarily going to be your way. And I would always pose the challenge. I said, you can do this job any way you want, as long as you can do it better than I can. I don't care
Mm,
I don't
yeah,
care the method you use. If you
that's
have a
good.
better, if you're faster at it, if you're more accurate at it, whatever it is, I don't care how you get it done. If you're doing it better than I can do it.
That's good.
If you can't, then you need to do it my way.
That's
you know.
right.
So yeah, because everybody, depending on what the kind of the job it is, you would learn, you're going to figure out a different approach. And that's what the challenge was. You know,
Mhm.
figure out how you can make it better, how you can do it better than I can.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I had an instance the other day, like I say, and it's a growth of a leader. I've got an employee, and she was struggling with something, and I decided I was going to help her out.
Mhm.
And so I kind of dug in and needed some research, and I found her a tool that is like this, like saver for her. Huge time saver, saves a lot of frustration. And I found it online, and it costs 150 bucks a month. I'm like, okay, great, this thing's going to work. Showed it, they love it. Multiple employees are now using the tool. I told them, I said, my job is not, yeah, my job as a leader is to make your job easier.
Yes.
That's what I ended up telling them,
Yes.
because so it's not for me to do your job, but if I can help make it easier and you're happier and more productive, then I've done what I'm supposed to.
Gosh, I wish more people understood exactly what you just said. That the job of a leader is not to get things done. It's to get things done through other people, to
Hmm.
resource them, empower them,
Yes.
encourage them, invest in them so that they will get the job done. So well said.
Yeah. That and so that's where I'm focusing. Like, okay, my own journey, the next level I want, it has more oversight and less in the day to day, which means I have to focus on how do I make those day to day people, though, so good that I don't have to worry about replacing them because they're great at their job.
Yes.
And I can be, like I say, as I get a little older, I want to be a bit more hands off.
Yeah.
I can have that trust that the operation is going to run smoothly.
Mm. If you were able to go back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, given what you know now, go back and tell yourself one thing, one piece of advice. What would you
Hmm.
love to go back and tell yourself?
I think, yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you could actually tell yourself, yeah, if you were to go back. Um, but I think one of the things, like, I'm not a micromanager. I don't like doing it, but I think I would tell myself that I needed to focus more on the people,
Mhm. Yeah,
so it would be less necessary.
that's good.
Companies often, yeah, and it's a lesson I've learned later, but companies often end up in the problem of they want to fill a seat.
Yeah,
I have a position, I need someone who can do that, can fill it. And one of the hardest things I think of, yeah, for any business owner is hiring.
yeah,
Yeah. I had this, like, realization a number of years ago, because my first business, we had a lot of turnover, and the functions themselves, the things that you needed the employees to do, they were, you could take a lot of unskilled labor, you could train them to do a job, but we often had problems with people showing up. It was one of the things I hated about it. They were showing
mm,
up, they would either not show up, um, they would do something wrong, we'd have to fix it, we'd be covering, and I would ultimately let them go, if we had enough problems. And I would tell people, I thought of it wrong, almost like this badge of honor that
mm,
I fired so many people.
yeah,
I was like, it's not a big deal to me because I've done all the, and then I eventually I came to the realization, and this is what I wish I would have realized. Had I paid more attention, the mistake was on me. Yeah, because I realized, it's like, I think I used to say something like along the lines of, like, in my career, I've fired like 400 people. It ain't no big deal. No, if I did that many, and I don't think I actually did, but everyone that I fired meant I made a mistake hiring for
Yes.
whatever reason.
Yes.
Maybe I refused. Maybe I decided that uh, their skill set warrants that we need it, and I would overlook that I didn't think that they were fit for the team, or vice versa. They were a great fit, but they lacked the skill set for whatever reason. If I had to let them go, it means that I probably made the mistake in the first place hiring them.
Yeah.
Or I had somebody else vet them and I didn't talk to them enough. Because hiring, you can have this, and I've hired a lot of people over the years and I have let people go, but you end up with a resume in front of you. It's got all these qualifications.
That's right.
You try to get to know the person, but how much can you really get to know them? And I totally understand big corporations, they'll throw you through 5 different interviews and all of these things. Small businesses don't have the we don't have the time to do that.
Yeah.
To have those, that whole vetting process. So I think that would be the thing, is to figure out ways so that I could pay more attention to who we were hiring. Hiring is, don't go from the position of need. You have, whether you need them or not, you have to hire from the position of, I really want this person. This person is going to be really good if I need the person. And it doesn't matter. Like, I had an instance where I hired an SEO guy for the team 6 months ago or so, and everybody was bugging me. We need this guy. We need this guy. We need this guy. And I was like, no. I'm like, we need the guy. I agree, but I haven't found the guy. I had interviewed multiple people, and because of that pressure, I could have made a bad hire, and I refused to do it.
Good.
And I ended up taking, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks or something. But then I found the guy. And then when I found him, I hired him, and he's been great. I think he's one of my best hires. But had I gone from that pressure standpoint of, we've got to, if I go from that position, I'll get somebody, but it doesn't mean we're going to get the right person. And I think that's one of the biggest, things that I would tell myself. You need to be more patient when you hire, so that you can properly, vet them and make sure that they're going to be a fit, and don't do it because you have to fill that spot.
Such good advice. When you operate out of a mindset of scarcity, that's when you're tempted to just, we just got to get it done. Just got to get it done. And you make those kind of mistakes. I've done that. I've done that more than once. Yes. But these days, with the benefit of evaluated experience, what I tell our team frequently is, better nobody than the wrong body.
Yeah. That's what it took me a long time to learn that.
Me too.
And, but having learned it, and, that's the way I tend to operate now. It's like, because I'll bring them back in for an extra interview, because I'll go off a gut instinct whether I think that they're a good fit or not.
Yeah.
But if they raise any red flags with me, if you hire, if you end up hiring and firing people a lot over the years, eventually hopefully your instinct gets better, right?
Hopefully.
Of who's going to be hopefully, of who's going to be, because you can only learn so much from what you read on paper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's one of my biggest things is, when I'm looking at it, it's, what position am I in? Because if I'm in that scarcity, if I think I got to fill that position right at this moment, then I need to take a step back, because I'm going to end up making the wrong choice potentially, versus, I can wait it out a little bit, because this, I say, because you feel like this person in front of you, I need to fill the position, but there's something about it. It says, this is not the person I need. I need to wait this out a little. You don't want paralysis from it, to make a move.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the thing. So that's what I would tell myself, having dealt with so many people over so many years.
Good. Is there a book that you've come across that has really benefited you in a significant way that you would recommend that the leaders listening add to their to-read list?
I've read so many books. I got a couple. One of the top of my list is Shoe Dog, which you might have read.
Yeah.
Because Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, I think his is the book itself is an interesting story, because he's like 85 years old or something. And he wrote it about, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago now. But when he decided to write the book, I don't remember which school he went to, but he went back to school
Mm.
to take creative writing so he could write the whole thing. There's no ghostwriter involved.
Wow.
He, yeah, he said, this is my story and I'm going to tell it, the whole thing. And the thing is his whole journey is just incredible. It wasn't always Nike, it was Blue Ribbon Sports, and Phil Knight was a runner at, I think it was Oregon State. And uh, that's what he did, and he gets into this business and he starts selling, running shoes,
Mm.
Tigers in the, like late 60s and then early 70s, you know, and eventually I mean, if you want to see adversity that's overcome, the movie Air that came out recently
Yeah.
is a nice compliment. If you've read the first thing, then some of that makes even more sense.
Yeah.
So I think that one's a really good one. I like the Traction book, because it kind of makes you a little bit more self-aware of who you are, because as you go through and you see, who is the integrator versus who is that visionary person, and you kind of helps you decide potentially who you are more so,
Yeah.
which of those people, but there's, like I say, there's just so many really good books. What I always encourage is, if you're going to read business books, look at the different stories.
Mm.
That's because
Yeah.
there's so many that have come out, and I've read, and the idea is that you're absorbing from all of these different points of view. I've read books on IBM, I've read books on Walmart, Target, Dollar General, yeah, was it Dick's Sporting Goods? Like, I don't, I've read books on, uh, you know, Grubhub and stuff like that, and I cite that book. That is a really good book too. And in fact, that's a really good book for people that are looking at, are they done? Are they like
Mm.
burned out and stuff like that? Because
Oh, that's good.
uh, I can't think of the guy's name, but the founder of Grubhub, eventually he was able to exit. When he tells the story, and this is what makes it fascinating. He decided to do the cross country, like, bicycling marathon deal. Like, it wasn't a marathon, but he cycled from the east to the west coast.
Wow.
And so he's telling the story of the company and how he founded it, how he grew it, and everything. At the same time, he's telling you the story of this journey of this cross
Mm.
country trip.
Mm.
And like I say, it's the company. It's for Grubhub, so you'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
I think that is a really interesting journey because of those dual points of view. It's
Yeah.
here I was inside the business and all the things it went through, all the way to his own exit, and also he goes on the journey. He talks about how he used to work basically 80 hours a week, and he did it for 10 years.
Mm.
So if you ain't burned out after that,
Yeah.
I don't know
Seriously,
what,
right?
like, yeah, you got more stamina than I do. Yeah. So he goes, 80-hour weeks for, like I say, like 10 years straight. Just everything is about the company. And I think that's the thing and that's why I really like this book. He goes on this cross country trip as a way of rediscovering himself. And I think
Mm.
that's what entrepreneurs, they need. I love what I do as an entrepreneur. So coming in on a Saturday or Sunday
Yeah.
is not a big deal for me. I do it because I want to, and I got something I want to work on.
Yeah.
I'm not forced to do it.
Right.
But if you feel like it's a chore, if you feel like you don't want to do it anymore, you're starting to burn out. And you got to take time for yourself to rediscover the
Mm.
things that why you even became an entrepreneur. I did it not for the money. I did it for the freedom. I don't like being told what to do. You know? I don't want to be, because I end up with a lot of ideas. I don't want to be impaired. I don't want
Yeah.
somebody else, stifling my creativity.
Yeah.
So if I'm the guy in charge, that can never happen.
Yeah. That's true.
But sometimes you've got to remember that. And he's since gone on to, a lot of them go on to venture capital and stuff like that, and coaching other founders and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good story because of that. I need to find myself again part, and you can continue to run your business and still end up in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I it's I have part of our digital marketing team in Costa Rica, and I went down and I visited them in like April, and I'd been toying around, like, of whether I wanted to keep doing this for a while, and the point where I actually realized that I didn't want to, not this particular, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but not this particular business anymore, is I went down there for about a week, spent time with the team. They were all great and everything, going out to dinners and working together during the day. We have about, I think it's 15 staffers down there. And I came back, like part of it, I came back and realized I didn't even enjoy half the trip.
Hmm.
I should have enjoyed all of it.
Hmm.
Like this, I'm getting away. Not only am I getting to work with these people that I don't deal with every day, except on, Teams and Zoom and stuff like that. I'm going down there and exploring this beautiful country. And I did some, really cool things, but I came back. I should have been relaxed.
Hmm.
I should have been, like, hey, this is great. I'm freaking fired up and ready to go. And that was not what happened. I
Hmm.
came back, and the next day I had an employee ask me some question that it was one of those things of in my mind, what happened was, why the hell are you asking me? And I snapped. And I ended up, oh, yeah, I got it. And I later apologized to her because I realized what I did. But I was like, instead of coming back relaxed, I was at the end of my, end of what I could do, like end of my rope. I was done. And I think that's what, if you get to that point as an entrepreneur, and this is where it goes back to that Grubhub, he understood that. That was like my moment of reckoning to say, it's time to move on, and it's not that I don't have to be, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm just going to run something else because it's time for me to exit what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I think as entrepreneurs, we got to know, when to say when.
Yes.
You cannot. I know the business is you, and you are the business. No, you got to know when to let go. And I think that is important. I think it's important for your health, your mental sanity. Yeah. Sometimes maybe you just can't take the business any further, and someone else can. But it opens up a realm of possibilities for you if you just think about it and you take the time to set yourself up for the exit. Ask me a year ago of whether I'd want to exit, I would say no. My instinct was a no. The reality, if when I came to accept it, was, yeah, actually I am.
Gosh, this has been so fascinating, and I feel like I could talk with you for another hour. There's so much insight that you've shared today. And, learning when it's okay to turn that page and say it's time for the next chapter, I think is such a big takeaway for me, for sure. And I know for so many of those listening, I know people are going to want to stay connected with you and continue to learn from you. What is the best way for them to do that?
Well, LinkedIn's one of the best ways. I've got like 5,000 something connections nowadays. Because there's not many people with my name Cash, so I actually get the LinkedIn handle that just says Cash. I think it's Cash.Miller,
Nice.
something on there. I don't have any numbers or anything. So that's one of the best ways. You can also find me for the new company. It's my email is cash at titanmediaworks with an x.com. So, and you can check us out on there. But yeah, that's, like I say, LinkedIn's the best way. I'm on there pretty often. Connect with a lot of people, and of course, we do podcast production for my new business, and we've been, interviewing some great guests, on some of the shows we do. So, and we've got different shows that we put on smallbusinessdelivered.com, which is fascinating in itself because that site, when I said I started a website in 2007, and it was originally articles and what would be blog posts now and stuff. And it was all management and marketing and everything. It was that domain. I kept it.
Wow.
Yeah, I kept it all these years. I shut the original site down in like 2014 or something. It had 1,000 articles at the time or something, but I didn't maintain it anymore. Because I had a lot of business coaches that had let me republish their content, things like that. And it's funny too, in running my podcast, I've reconnected with some of those coaches. So that has been just like really surreal. But that site, so we said, so we publish different, we have different shows on there and on the site. So I've got a couple, and we've got other hosts and stuff, and it's all business shows. So the fact that it could come back to life, in a different content form than original, but but it's still the same idea. we're putting podcasts on there, but it's still the same idea. It's business coaches that are on there, and say I run a marketing one, and I talk to franchises. So I think that part is like straight incredible. Last note I'll say on that part too, because with businesses, it was funny. A long time ago, I wrote some articles for that site, and I wrote them on some big companies like UPS, I think Subway and stuff like that. And in a couple of them, Wikipedia cited my articles, and it was there that I had found my information. So, yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I say, I find it like, let's say, it's very, it's an interesting full circle journey to end up back where I'm actually building that site out again and promoting it. It's a different type of business that I'm using it for, but the original point still exists for it.
Well, I can't wait to see what your next chapter looks like with podcast promotion and what you're doing with this new company and this site. I'm looking forward to seeing what this next chapter is going to be, because I think my guess is it's going to be your best one yet.
That's the hope, and I'm looking forward to it, the new journey that it is. I will say, the business that I'm creating now, my new mantra is simple, simple, simple. Keep it, it's the KISS principle.
KISS principle. That's it.
Yep. Because digital marketing, that like the first one, I learned some of the people I didn't want to deal with, just because of some of the headaches, the type of labor and things that I didn't want to experience. The second one, it was a matter of the complicated nature. So now I know to keep this one a little bit more straightforward, so it's easier to manage, in which case I don't have to be there every day.
The goal of every entrepreneur I've ever met.
Yeah, right.
Cash, thank you. I really appreciate your generosity today.
It was great being here. I really enjoyed being on your show.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.